Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Sure.
No problem. I have 6:30, so let's call our meeting to order. We'll start with the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we're meeting today to conduct matters of business, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our decisions so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 3 on our agenda is public comments. Ms. Janie, do we have any public comments?
Not this evening.
Okay, great. Item 4, consider and take action on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, new business. Consider an update and formal presentation of the City of Simonton, Texas Sales and Use Tax Report, November 2023. Our Ryan Fortner is here tonight to deliver an update for us.
Okay, hey, Rujo and City Council, it's wonderful to see you all again. I do have both December and the November reports for you all. What I'll be providing to you all this evening is public information. What you have in front of you is confidential information, so I will hit the highlights of that for November, and then I will go over December as well. If at any point you need to stop me, just please do so. I'll be initially beginning with the November sales tax report. This is as of the middle of November 2023. At that time, your average allocation per year was from 2020 to the present, $138,729.22. Again, that is from 2020 to the present, which is why that number is so low. Average allocation per month, $11,641. We are showing in November $396,640.28. At the time, that was not able to be compared against last year because we were missing 1 month of information. I will highlight that in the December report in just a moment. On the following page, what we do is we look at several categories. We look at what's actually physically on the ground here in the city. We look at the monthly reports that the state provides to us, which are confidential. We also look at the new payment releases, new permit releases that are provided to us each month by the state, as well as we have access to the state's database. Utilizing that in the NAICS codes that we have, we look at the total sales tax permits that have had any sort of remittance to the city or could have a remittance to the city. As of October 2023, there were 2,752 such permits that were notated. On the following page, we also look each month at your total actual sales tax filers that make up your checks. The month of October 2023 saw 501 sales tax filers. That's a 2.3% increase over that time last year. You're averaging 513 sales tax filers each month. February of 2023 showed the highest number of sales tax filers to date in the history of the city, 604. And I can absolutely guarantee you that in 2024 we will eclipse that number. This is a pretty good representation. Most of these are e-commerce based. The cloud is where it's at. I mean, we all know this. And so what we see is that, and I'll go into this in further detail momentarily, but there is a high number of e-commerce purchases that are being made in the city, and that's really, really good for the city's revenue stream. On the following page, and this is where I kind of have to be a little bit vague, you will see top 25 sales tax filers for 12 months combined, as well as for the month of October. Below that, you'll see the total dollar amount for the top 25 of their 12 months, as well as the month of October. It is worth noting that the month of October showed $48,550.32. The top tax filer listed there, number 1, was a recovery. That actual confidential information has been provided to the mayor. If anyone needs to go into that with me privately or via email or phone call, please call. You'll see the actual breakdowns of the individual tax filers and what they remitted, as well as for the month of October, there were 7 tax filers filing over $1,000. 82% of that was 82% of the revenue stream was from those top 7 tax filers. As I mentioned to you all on the following page, you'll see the Nexus and the e-commerce. In that, you will see the top 10 e-commerce filers for the last 12 months, their total remittances and their individual remittances as well. And we stay on top of this every single month because e-commerce is huge. That was one of the reasons why we were brought on, because we're trying to bring and make sure and ensure that the sales that's taking place here in the city is actually coming to the city and not going to your neighboring cities. And e-commerce is one of the hardest things as far as sales tax to shepherd. And we've been doing pretty well with it. But we want to list these top 10 for you all so you can see kind of who's making up your checks. On the following page, you'll see the actual remittances for November, $29,906 compared to November of 2022, $27,118.02. That is a 10% increase. And we show quarter 4 sales tax comparisons. This time last year, you were bringing in $57,000. This year, $80,000. So revenue streams are up. And you have a mean allocation of $36,058.21. And I like to point that out because if you were to ever want to do a back of the envelope conservative calculation of how are we going to fare for the next 12 months, you could use this mean allocation, and that would be a very conservative place to start. Following that, you have your monthly sales tax filers with dollar amounts and a graph listed. Now for the month of December, December is your 4th quarter, your last calendar month. We still have 2 months remaining of actual 2023 sales tax remaining. All of your receipts are 2 months in arrears. So the check that you received this month was for monies that were spent within the city 2 months ago. Our last check will come in February of 2024. But for calendar year 2023, we're wrapping it out. $429,653.04. That is 17% above last year. You are now averaging $35,806.42 for 2023. We show 2,727 NEICS permits. Your November allocation reflected 512 taxpayers. That is a 3.2% increase over this time last year. We always want to make sure that taxpayers are up. We don't want to see a situation where tax filers fall down because that's kind of a red flag for us. We have not seen that yet within the city. Again, 604 tax filers for February of 2023. We have not eclipsed that yet. The top 25 sales taxpayers for November has been updated, as well as the top 25 for the last 12 months. Additionally, for December, we updated the top 10 e-commerce sales tax filers. There were 37 physical businesses located within the city, 475 filings that were sales based from the cloud. Now, for the month of December, your December allocation, $33,012.76. That was a 15% decrease from this time last year. So we looked into it with the quarterly, with the confidential information. I've listed that there for you all. It was from one individual business. Well, actually, there was 3 individual businesses, but I'm not allowed to list them out loud because it's less than 4. But you have that information. And what we did was we showed last year's filings, this year's filings, and what we are finding is this is not something that is specific to the city. We serve counties, fire departments, municipal utility districts. Across the board, sales are down. People are just tightening their belts. We will see an uptick in February because that's the actual sales that are happening right now. And in December, people are always buying presents and doing online purchasing. But overall, we are seeing a majority of our clients having decreased sales. And that's not because we're not doing our due diligence. People are just being more mindful of their dollars. So with that $429,653 that was received this year, you had an average allocation each month of $36,58.21. And everything looks good. We are awaiting the February report wherein we will be able to wrap up 2023 as a calendar year for you all. We will also be able to wrap up your total sales tax that was collected from e-commerce. And until that time, we are just staying on top of it all for you, and we'll have a report presented to you all in January. And if there's questions, I'd be happy to answer this for you all.
I'm good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
We sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Doing good work.
With your permission, I like to always stay, but I have family members that are dealing with cancer and they are not doing so well, so if I could just be
Absolutely.
excused. Thank you all. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for another year being able to serve you all. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I look forward to serving you all in 2024.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thank you so
Christmas.
much.
You too. Thank you for your time.
Safe travels. All righty. Excuse me. Sorry. Item 5B, receive a formal presentation updating the City Council on the progress of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, Meeting 3. Ms. Susan Ladort has prepared a recap and kind of an update of where we are so far.
Okay, so I'm just going to do like a super high overview of kind of the stuff that we've been working on for the last 6 months. But 95% of these slides are actually pulled from the website that is on the city website. So if anybody wants to have the full thing, everything is there. All right. So basically, what is a comprehensive plan? Well, basically, it will help us to decide how the city wants to grow. And we've had a lot of meetings helping Ardura, have a lot of conversations. You can see all the things around the room here. Basically, we have like how the city limit is, things that people want to see, things that people don't want to see. And I believe we're going to have a town hall to sort of do all that stuff later on in the year as well. So one of the main things here, I guess, this last bullet, which is the typical elements are land use, community character, neighborhoods, housing, parks, open space, infrastructure, drainage, mobility, and transportation. Those are the things that will affect the city the most. Okay. Here, again, this is taken from Ardura. These are the things, again, that we felt were super important to make sure that are established in this comprehensive plan, so when zoning happens, everyone knows what page they're on. Obviously, it's the residential, commercial, service, retail, social, cultural, educational, religious, institutional, recreational, and open space. Okay. So I don't think this is a shock to anyone. Fort Bend County has been one of the fastest growing counties for a really long time, and Fulshire is probably on the top of that list right now. By 2023, they say Fort Bend County is projected to grow by more than 25% again, and to double by 2050. Okay, and I know Simonton is very small, and people don't think there's room to grow, but there's a lot of room to grow. And I'll show you a couple of maps here in a second. Again, here are the benefits, and as we just got a direct benefit here, sales tax, property tax, if it ever comes, hotel occupancy tax, fees, additional jobs, intangibles, making sure that whatever we do here fits the community needs. Okay. So here, we basically went through a tour of Simonton, and I have a feeling that some of the things that Ryan just presented to us are listed on here for the businesses that are actually here in town. I don't know if you can read all that, it's kind of tight. But highlighted there in the mostly white area is actually the border of the city limits of Simonton. And we encompass 2.1 square miles, 2.2 I think. This is just a real busy slide that I just grabbed from Ardura. Again, this is highlighting the things that the people in the city feel are important. Mobility, the character, vision and guiding principles, development standards, which I think everyone here is very intent on making sure that when Simonton grows, that it grows in a way that is aesthetically pleasing to the people who already live here, and to the people who want to move here, and to businesses who want to come here. So you want to make sure that all of those questions are asked and answered, and that they become part of the way we move forward in the city.
Ms. Susan, a lot of that was gathered from online survey and some in-person survey and meetings and things. So this is including feedback from the public already as the process is on, right?
Yes, and the people who are actually sitting on the council or the board, or whatever you call us, to represent the people in the community, kind of like you guys represent the city. Okay, so here you have kind of a busy slide again. It shows the existing land use. In yellow is obviously residential. The white areas, okay, so highlighted in the dark black here is the city limits. Highlighted in the, I don't know if my mouse will open, it doesn't. Highlighted in the sort of bubble-looking dotted line is the ETJ. Now, again, as everyone knows, back in September, the laws changed for how much control the city has over the ETJ, but it doesn't eliminate us being able to set guidelines and standards for the areas. Inside the city limits, you can see which I think would be the most effect in the short term. The areas that are still in white inside the city limits are open land use. Inside of that open land, Twinwood does own some of it, maybe a good bit of it, but the big blob right there in between section 1 and section 2 and 3 in Valley Lodge, I believe, is 92 acres-ish. In the meetings that we've had with Ardura, it might be interesting to know that the entire, what is it, the Sugarland city.
Oh, the town center.
The town center. The Sugarland town center is only 32 acres. And I think La Centera is probably smaller than that. So keep in mind that 92 acres could bring in a ton of revenue and businesses and or all kinds of stuff. It's a mixed use if it's set up as mixed use.
Where are you? Is that the upper left?
It is in between section 1 and
Where they were going to build the
okay. Yeah. So this area right here is 92 acres. And so this is the city limits. So all of this here in white is still open land. And I believe Twinwood owns most of this, but at some point they're going to develop it with something, be it residential, commercial, or mixed use. Or sell it. That would be up to them. And I didn't actually measure how much of that is available. I think it's somewhere around, I think I did measure that. I think it's like around 600-ish acres that's not currently developed in Simonton, which is quite a bit. And here's just a little tidbit of information. If anybody's been to Bandera, it is a tiny town. It has a population of somewhere around 900. It has upwards of 100 businesses, and it's half the size of Simonton. So I go there a lot. I have friends who have places there, and the things that draw people there are, it's a cool little town, and there's a gazillion things to do. They have the river, yes, but we're also going to have a reservoir within 3 miles of us in the future. How long, we don't know, but possibly in the next 8 to 10 years. And here's another little cool thing that I saw the other day, which we've seen all this stuff. Basically, the expansion over Houston, Fulshire, basically Fort Bend County area, and Simonton over the last, I can't even read that, long time. But if you just focus basically on 2010 to 2020, you can look at Fulshire had went from basically 1,100 people to close to 17,000 people in 10 years. I drove up 1093 3 days ago, and the new city limit sign in Fulshire is sitting there right at the Shell station on 1093 heading toward Fulshire. Over 34,000 people in 3 years. We don't have the kind of space that Fulshire has, but we definitely have space to grow. And watching things head out from Weston Lakes, it's coming quickly. So we need to be prepared, and I do believe that setting up guidelines and having whatever we need to do for infrastructure, making sure that when businesses or whatever developers come in, that those agreements are set up to where it's advantageous for the city and for the taxpayers in the area. And this is just basically little bubbles of growth. Since 1980, you can just see the red, and the star is Simonton. So it goes from the top left to the top right, bottom left to bottom right. Basically how it's just expanding and growing, and it's just population. Okay. Again, this is a busy slide. It's kind of things that I already went over. Basically where we think the city needs to go, the things that are going to be important to people, things that definitely need to be written into the comprehensive plan, which will help us with zoning in the future. Okay. And if you want to have all the information, this presentation, well, this one's not, but I pulled it from it, but we can add this one if you want. It's not a big deal. Basically, all the meetings and presentations that we've done with Ardor are on the city website. So feel free to look and educate yourselves. Okay. Any questions?
Thanks so much.
Just, I know that we've got the 92 acres, and I know that City Center is much, much smaller, but if anything like City Center was ever built there, it'd have to be built, 6 feet in the air because of our flooding.
Commercial buildings
issues,
don't have the same regulations as homes.
Except they would go under in the next flood.
They would have to follow some FEMA guidelines and some regulations about it, but they would not have to be elevated.
So it's hard for me to see that it'd be great to have something like that. But with our flooding concerns, that's always, I'm sure Ardura is taking that into consideration in their report.
They are, and there are easy ways to actually go around that. I mean, you could always build a city center on top of a parking garage. Super easy to do, and you have parking garages anyway, so that's a super easy way to elevate. Cars park underneath, everything's on top. So it can be done.
One on top.
It can be done. So if people have money and they see the value of coming out here, somebody will fork over the money to build it properly, especially mixed use. So not just that 92 acres, but there's a lot of there's a lot of space here that you can see. And granted, like I said, Twinwood does own a lot of it, but I don't believe they're going to sit on it and do nothing. I don't know their plan, but I do believe that they have a comprehensive mixed-use plan for the property that they do own currently. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For preparing that and presenting from a resident's point of view. All right, item C, receive a report from the mayor regarding Twinwood U.S. Municipal Utility District Number 1. Twinwood MUD Number 1 had their first organizational meeting last Friday. We received our invitation, and so I went to watch them with the forming and see what their initial plans are. They didn't roll out a lot of plans because it's their very first. This MUD was established in the 80s, and this is the first time that it's going to seat a board and start doing the work of the MUD. Primarily, it will serve Orchid Estates, which is the guardhouse over on 1489 on the south of the city. Part of that is in the ETJ, and part of it is out, but it's primarily being built, and it will service that over there. If you don't already know about it, the first 25 lots to be developed will be quarter to half acre. They're expecting those to be 1.5 million and up when they're finished homes. They've built the fence and the guardhouse, and they're working on the amenities like a resort-style pool and whatever else they're going to have. That's the one they mentioned, so that they'll be finished first. So they're able to serve people who would like to come in and decide whether this is where they'd like to build. So there's FYI about that. There'll be another 200 and I believe 18 lots established in the next phase. Those are scheduled to be 1 to 3 acre lots. And that's all the detail that was shared, but this was kind of an explanation of what the MUD is, why it's located where it is, what it's planning to serve, that was given to the new board members. So we're happy to gather that information. They did share with their board a draft development plan that Twinwood has agreed that they would share with the CPAC.
and once that's available, I'm sure that it can be used for public, but we'll wait for them to give permission on that since it's a draft. We do have their pardon me for, I can't call the word for it, but each board member received a book for the initiating of the MUD, and they shared a copy of that with us, so it's here at City Hall if anybody is interested in it. It's very much the legal establishment and not lots of planning in it at this stage. They are looking to, in the future, have bonds to pay back Twinwood for the money that's been spent up front to establish the neighborhood, very similar to every other MUD probably. But there's no discussion of that at this point. They'll need some people living there before that becomes a thing. Any questions about that? Just information. Item D, CenterPoint Energy filing application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor. They filed on December 14th. They notify us that they're going to file new law that was changed in the legislature. It allows them to post for this twice a year. We've received a recommendation, so we visited this a month ago, 3 meetings ago, and we've been advised by the GCC to hold. There's no action to be taken now. They just have let us know that the filing was just received last week. They will investigate and do all the due diligence to find out if there is enough precedent for the cities and the coalition to push back or agree, or what the next steps are. So this is just an update on something we've talked about before since there's been a new filing. Are there any questions about that? Okay, great. Item 6 on the agenda, A, the mayor's report. Personnel recruitment update. I have reported that we were getting some good candidates. I haven't come across the AHA just yet, so there's not anyone here to introduce to you, but we have interviews in the works for 3 city administrators, applicants, and 2 or 3 city secretaries. So hopefully I will have more information for you about that soon. I have asked Janie if she is willing to consider working through the end of January. You know, when we originally started, we said we hoped that we would be ready to go by Christmas. We're not ready to go. Janie has agreed, as long as council is in agreement, to stay with us through the end of January, and hopefully that'll give us enough time to hire and onboard our new folks. Two on my list is the Portman County Subsidence District update. Just to let you know, we have not received any communication back on our counter offer, where they were requesting that we pay fees for our water well when it was not permitted previously. No information, just keeping you abreast of that. The third thing on my list, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the TCEQ. I let you know about an application that had come in. We were working with Mayor Wall at Weston Lakes to find out if they needed anything from us, like a letter of support. It was actually sent to the city of Simonton because they had on record that that water well, that the city secretary still officed here. So there's no action for us to take. They did send their city secretary over and picked it up so that they could make sure that they're up to date on what they need to do. But there's no action needed for Simonton. Again, this is not a new well or a new application. It's just a renewal of something they already have in Weston Lakes. Item 4, ARP expansion for the City Hall. Shanna O'Hara came out from LJA, brought some contractors, made more measurements, toured, and so just to note that that is continuing to move forward to help be prepared to have a bid package ready in January. I also had some texts out from Impress Computers about cabling and some other technical questions. So they're preparing a package of recommendation of what we might want to put in for a technology update in this room. They also are working on, prior to that project, some cabling so that things like the hub and the screens can speak to each other. We can use them at the same time. It would be something that would not be disrupted if we do a technology package in this room with the expansion. I wanted to kind of throw out a reminder. When we talked previously about the budget in our workshop and approved moving forward with the expansion, I didn't mention that we have budgeted, I think it's $15,000 and I didn't write it down, but we budgeted money for the repair of the bathroom, the existing bathroom over in the fire bay, because during the freeze the pipes broke and we had to cut them out and shut that off. So that will help us make sure we stretch our budget for the ARPA expansion and the chamber modification as far as we possibly can go. No action on that, but just a reminder that we can talk about that night, that we did budget some money for that since we knew there was damage over there. Item 5, E-code update. Just to let you know that Councilmember Turner, Boudreaux, and Cox have all completed training. We got online with the E-code folks. They showed us how to access the system to address the 75 questions that we need to go through, make some determinations and recommendations, figure out which questions will end up going to the city attorney for additional review, which things we can answer and bring to council. So once that package is completed, it will all come to council for approval. But it's moving forward. We've set a date for a next meeting in January. I'm sorry, in the first week of January, so that we can keep moving forward. This has to be completed by March 11th, so we will try to keep a pretty good cadence going for that. Some questions are super easy and some is going to require some work. Item 6, Olson & Olson's invitation to the City Council for training. I emailed council members, forwarded you an invitation from Olson & Olson. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look through it, but what it is a legal seminar. It's a local government legal seminar that Olson & Olson puts on every year. It's Thursday, January 25th. It's a full day, 8:30 to 4. It's at the Stafford Center, completely voluntary. The keynote speaker is Ed Emmett. He's a former Harris County judge who's serving as fellow in energy and transportation policy at the Center for Energy Studies at the Baker Institute. So it would be interesting. There's a lot to learn. If you have time or opportunity and you can schedule a day, I think you'll find it well worth it. One other thing, I met with Chief Meyer about the possibility, he made a recommendation that we consider a temporary or could be permanent location for a fire station here in Simonton. The temporary would be something that would be the most simple to execute, and the reason you'd want to do that is the coverage area for insurance, since we don't have hydrants and water service to homes here. There's a 3-mile radius from the fire station that helps for insurance coverage. So the tanker being here at City Hall provides that for us and everybody who's within 3 miles of us. If we were to move that farther to the west, either to the north or to the south, we could include more of our current residents in that 3-mile radius. So I mentioned that to Twinwood, and they've agreed to meet with us in the month of December to figure out if that's something viable. Our number one ask would be if they would donate property. It could be in their development plan. We talked about it 10 more years ago. So I will follow that up more and bring it back to council. But just so you know, the chief brought that to our attention as something that would be helpful. It could also impact our ARPA project. Not that it would stop the project, but we might have more room to do things that the city needs if the tanker were to move somewhere else within the city. So it's an interesting idea, and just in its infancy, but we'll explore it quickly. That is it on my list. Ms. Janey, do you have an update?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you for that. And thank goodness that Phil is here so that he can talk us through the administrative part. I saw Councilman Burns Turner this morning at Roper's, and he kindly asked me for an updated calendar, which we had agreed to get to the council. We talked about it on the November 21st meeting. So if you'll look in your books, and he's going to weigh in on how the changes would be made. At the very back of your books, the very last section, there's not just this calendar, but I included the memo that y'all looked at on November the 21st. It was on the consent agenda, and there were a couple of options to be made, but we didn't actually speak to them. And as the mayor and I were looking at the calendar, provided you the first 6 months, that she said, you know, I don't know, Janie, if the council, if some of them might be traveling, and we didn't move the first meeting, even though there was a recommendation there. So Phil's going to talk us through how that could be taken care of very easily and legally.
Right, and again, because this was accepted on the consent agenda last month, and this just is an administrative item, just to note on what I would call page 2, but it's the page that discusses when the city council meetings would take place. It has the recommendation, instead of meeting on January 2nd and 16th, the city council would meet on January 9th and 23rd. So what we want to clarify is if there's any confusion, because as this is read, the meetings have been moved to the 9th and 23rd, to move them away from the day after a holiday, right? Not the Tuesday after a holiday if we risk quorum or anything like that. So if that's not how everyone read this, then we just want to seek that sort of administrative clarity, and then if we need to schedule move a meeting or something along those lines, then we could make a motion as such. But because we risk, all half coming on a different day, we don't want to have that. So right now, what would have been your traditional first Tuesday regular city council meeting would have been Tuesday, January 2nd. And according to the consent agenda item, the recommendation was to move it to January 9th. So in essence, you'd be doing would that be the second and fourth Tuesday of the month of January in order to not risk the quorum issue of those regularly scheduled meetings. So if that's not how this was interpreted, I think that's a brief point of discussion. If that is how y'all understood this, great. If you didn't understand it and you're fine with it, also great, because that's already what was approved in the agenda. So as it stands now, it would be January 9th and January 23rd as the council meetings, which will then be, called meeting, still standard agenda items that would be set as they normally would, 72 hours, etc. None of that changes. It would require 4 council members for quorum because it's moved, so 3/4 required instead of 3, but no other action needs to be taken.
Isn't usually the first Tuesday kind of a reserve in case we have a meeting? So would leaving it on the 16th not be an option based on what is printed here?
Well, the 16th is also the day after holiday, because we'll be closed on Monday the 15th for Martin Luther
No, I don't
King Day. Yeah.
I don't get those holidays off.
Right.
Okay.
We could always decide that the first meeting is on the 9th and then not use it, since that's our reserve day. But either way, our intention is to change it just for the month of January, since those 2 holidays both fall on
It's
Mondays.
just the only thing on that 23rd is that's going to put our meeting on the 23rd and then your meeting on the 25th all day. So just trying to set my own schedule.
Yeah, but our council meetings are 6:30 at night.
I know, I try to prep myself during the day. If I can, up to y'all though. I mean, I
So-
didn't
Everybody else-
interpret that at all. so-
Yeah, no, understood. So no action is needed as far as moving days if the 9th and the 23rd are what is understood. If not, if we need to go into discussion, I believe it shouldn't be an issue to have a motion to confirm this, but however, it not being on the agenda, I don't want to pull it too much up if this is what's understood. Again, knowing that the 9th is a day that, or that first Tuesday may be a day that isn't used anyways, having it set for the 23rd, you can come to that point.
Guess just move it.
So like that's what everybody understood, or that we're in agreement?
Or understand now?
Understand now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Jamie.
Yes, ma'am. And just for the clarification in the city council meeting minutes, I want to make sure I understand. Assure the council that we're meeting on the 23rd.
Yes, based on,
Okay.
sorry, that was still directed at the same thing. Yeah, I apologize. So yes, based on the approved consent agenda item for your November meeting,
Okay.
the meeting for the next city council is January 9th.
Okay.
If it's not used, January 23rd.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. And then the only other thing, well, I had a couple of really other quick things you asked to be reminded of. You wanted to mention this to the council.
So after council today, if you would have interest, we have a bereavement card. I'll put it in the break room if anybody has interest in signing it or being included. Erica Molina's father passed away last week, so thought we'd give an opportunity for everybody to sign if you would like to.
And the last thing that I have is that on this, what's a working draft of the calendar, and it'll be updated. We posted the notice on last Thursday before the 18th, Monday, yesterday, right? As is required for the first day to file for a place on the general election ballot.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Any council member have a report? All right, if not, then it's time to adjourn. I have 7:12. Thank you, everybody, for coming.